Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Straight Talk. In this episode, we're here at our Istanbul office with Cameron Diggin. Cameron,
Hello
welcome.
There. Hello, Alaattin.
Good. This is the very first day after the elections in Turkey, the second round of the elections of Turkey, which has resulted with yet another victory for Erdogan. And here we are sitting and talking about how the future will look like with Erdogan. What did he do to win these elections? Because it's such a big thing, isn't it? I mean, the guy's been in the power for more than 2 decades now. And what were some of the events that led up to his rule and regime, and in general overview of Erdogan's performance, as much as we can think about it. There's definitely a lot of people who are wondering how. Especially starting from this very industry, how Turkey will change in the next 5 years. So to begin with, let's address one simple fact, Cameron. Erdogan has been in power for the past 21 years.
True.
And you and I, we both are following the political narrative in the media, and everybody was saying, this time the elections were going to be very hard for Erdogan. The earthquake happened, the inflation, the sliding lira, the war up in Ukraine and Russia. This time it's very, very hard for Erdogan to win. On top of that, the entire opposition came together. Up until the polling day, up until the voting day, most people thought that this time Erdogan is going. But something happened, and not in the first round, but in the second round, he got pretty much the same amount of votes. And he is now the president of Turkey. What is your take on the past few months that we had as an election period? How was Erdogan's performance, and why was he able to win the way he did?
He won the elections for the 3rd term, despite the fact that the opposition parties were most hopeful on this occasion that they were going to oust Erdogan.
Mm-hmm.
But he won the elections for the 3rd term. And all along, if I look at it, leading up to the elections, I see a man who was very, very confident that he would win.
Of course he was. And I wasn't confident that he would
Nobody
win.
was.
And
I wasn't either.
Yeah.
But he was.
Especially, I'll tell you, when this earthquake happened, right? Earthquake happened in February 6th. Elections were May 14th. The day it happened, I said, okay, this is a disaster, and forget the elections. He will postpone the elections at least 1 year, because this particular area needs regeneration and rebuilding and humanitarian aid and what have you. He didn't cancel it. And despite everything, the lira is now going to 20-ish, whatever. Everybody expected that, okay, this time Erdogan is no more. But he himself, he never doubted.
Yeah.
He genuinely haven't doubted.
Yeah.
I mean, it was not a political move that I think, he needed to look sharp.
He knew.
He knew. He knew.
I think one of his strengths is the fact that he seems to read the Turkish public. He seems to really have the finger on the pulse in terms of what the opinion out there is.
Right.
And he reads it very, very well.
Let me ask you a question. How many times have you witnessed the elections or election times or election campaigns in Turkey? This one, 2018, 14, 2011 perhaps,
exactly.
and you followed many,
Yes.
right? From outside, and I'll tell you, this is this is a narrative. I'm not going to say from which way this narrative comes from, but it is a narrative. The moment you have a strong leader running a country for 20-something years and winning an election again, people think, oh, our election's rigged. Oh, there's an authoritarian. Oh, there's no democracy in Turkey. How can somebody stay in rule? You have been a prime witness for all the elections campaigns and everything. And Erdogan didn't win the elections in the first round. okay? Somebody who's an authoritarian running the country with an iron fist, he could have won in the first time, but he wasn't able to.
Yeah.
Do you agree with these statements of Turkey's becoming an authoritarian regime, the elections do not matter or whatever? Or do you think, which is what I think, is this an unprecedented show of democracy and you are seeing a leader who has solved the puzzle of winning elections?
Well, Alaattin, the first round, the 14th May elections, the turnout was 90%.
Right.
Now, 2 weeks after that, the country holds yet another general election, and the turnout for the second round was 85%. Now, when you compare these turnout ratios to the rest of the world, you will immediately realize that 85%, 90% are rates that we hardly ever see in the world these days. That shows to me that the people of this country want their voices to be heard. And they will do anything within their power to have their voices heard. Now, if this is not a full-scale democracy, then what is?
Right.
And when I look at the elections, no, I don't doubt that. I don't think the elections were rigged at all.
Of course not.
Not at all. And in fact, I think both Erdogan's party and the opposition party and their leaders, they did a very, very good job in supervising the elections and making sure that there are no doubts that are cast over the validity of the elections. And you know what? I give them full credit.
Sure. Yeah.
Full credit.
Yeah.
Very high turnout and elections that went very, very smoothly. Now, this is to me a sign of democracy.
Let me just reinforce what you just said. Had the opposition was more consistent and had run a better campaign, maybe better thought campaign, they could have won the elections.
100%.
And they just
100%.
lost by
100%.
Look at how they lost.
100%.
52%.
Yeah.
48%.
Yeah, yeah.
The margin isn't that big, though.
I know. I know. From the viewpoint of the opposition, I think they missed a historic chance to win. I'm not going to go into my reasons as to why they lost and why they did not manage to win, despite the fact that there is very high inflation in the country that has begun hurting people's pockets.
True, yes.
Definitely. Undeniable. Despite the fact that the government came under some criticism, rightly or wrongly, for allegedly mishandling the first couple of weeks of relief and support efforts after the dramatic earthquake we had 3 months ago. And a few other things that certainly appeared to be negative perception among the voters toward Erdogan and Erdogan's party. Despite all of those, he won.
Yeah.
Why? Why did he win, despite all of those? I think 2 reasons, Alaattin. 2 reasons. One, stability in the past 20 years that resulted in a significant growth in Turkish economy over 20 years. Let's not look at the last year or two or the last 3-4 years even. Let's evaluate this regime over their full period that they have been in power. Let's not look at their last 3 years, 4 years. Let's not get too hung up about inflation being rather high today. Yes, not a very good thing to have. I certainly wish that wasn't the case.
But that's a matter of the past couple of years.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm getting at. If we look at their span, the 20 plus years, they moved Turkey, or rather, I'll rephrase, Turkey moved under their regime from being, I think, 20th largest economy in 2002 to, from what I understand, your figures again, 11th largest economy this year.
Right.
Now, that's a massive jump.
True. Yeah.
Massive jump. If you look at the GDP growth of Turkey from year 2000 to say year 2022, that's a 22-year period, Turkey's GDP growth was second to China and a few other countries. Turkey is in the top 5 globally in terms of GDP growth.
Among the developed world.
Among the developed countries. All these are definitely things that Erdogan can show and say, you know what, all these happened under my watch. And he's not wrong.
Do you remember before the show, we actually talked about, I talked about an analogy. I compared Turkey to France so that people could better understand. But let me just talk to you about despite what that happened in Turkey. Yes, that was the trend from after 1999, 2000 until 2010, 12, 11, 13. That was a trend in the world, and Turkey got hooked up with the trend, and they moved the wave up. But despite what? Think about it like this.
Yeah.
And let's talk about from 2002 until 2023, what happened. Suppose Turkey is not Turkey, Turkey is France. And Turkey's neighbors are not Iraq, Syria, Armenia, Iran, Georgia, Russia, Ukraine, Bulgaria, Greece. Suppose that those neighbors are Germany, Belgium, Switzerland with their Alps.
Spain.
Yes, Spain, and maybe Italy by the border a little bit. And maybe Portugal, if you could say, with the maritime borders. And again, with maritime borders, UK and Ireland. And if you just throw a few stones, you have Netherlands there.
You've got the Scandinavian countries as well.
Scandinavian countries.
So let's assume France is Turkey
Right.
now.
So let's assume France is Turkey. The year 2002, Erdogan comes to power. A year later, America invades Germany and millions of people are killed. America says there are weapons of mass destruction in Germany. In Germany. They go in there, they invade Germany, they kill people, they occupy Germany for decades.
Displacing millions of people in the process.
Yes, destabilizing the region.
Who are having to go through France.
Right.
Because that's the nearest neighbor.
Right. Now, Bavaria creates another country. Westphalen, whatever, the Western region creates another country. Berlin says, I am the central authority and I create another country. And all of a sudden, out of Germany, so many insurgent organizations come up and they're weaponed and weaponized.
And they're right on your border.
Right on your border. So your trade.
Posing a threat.
Yes.
Security threat.
Right.
Political chaos.
Right.
Or you name it.
Your trade comes to a halt. Oh my God.
And then what happens?
Then happens?
Spain breaks up.
Civil war breaks out.
There's a civil war in Spain.
Millions of Spanish are displaced.
Well, over 5 million of them have to cross into your borders.
Yes, and you need to take care of them.
As France, you need to look after them.
Yes, and there is this organization called Eurasian Union, led by this country called Turkey. Okay, Eurasian Union, they're very wealthy. The Eurasian Union tells you that, hey, France, keep the Spanish refugees, we'll pay you so much money.
Exactly. Make sure they do not cross over to our side. We don't want them in Turkey.
Yes.
You keep them in France.
Because we have stability in Eurasia.
Because you are a very wealthy country, France.
Right.
So you keep them in France.
Right.
All 5 million of them.
And in your northern border with Luxembourg, you have some historical issues dating back from 100 years and your border is closed. And the Luxembourgians go over US and other countries saying, oh, we are persecuted, this, that, let's pose implications on France and ask for reparations from France or whatever. They continue lobbying around, the Luxembourgians. And all of a sudden, between the Nordic Union and UK,
a
big war breaks out.
UK attacks Scandinavia.
All of them.
All
of them at once. Because
because they claim their territory.
Right. But amidst all of those, there's a region called Basque region between Spain and France. They're separatists. They want independence. And somehow your ally gives them weapons, trucks loads of weapons, and say, these are freedom fighters, France. We are weaponizing them to create a state in Spain, but from time to time they're going to come to Bordeaux while you're drinking your red wine and
give you
they're
some
going
trouble.
to end up in a shootout. But that's okay.
No big deal.
Maybe they'll plant a bomb here and there, but that's okay. But we're gonna weaponize them. And then there are different regimes in Switzerland, and there are so many different regimes in Italy, and probably there's fascists going around, and Switzerland is a money laundering place and whatever. So your other neighbors, Belgians, they hate you because you have occupied the Belgians for 400 years, right? You have changed their language. You have not given them any rights to live. So Belgians are your arch enemy.
So with all these, catastrophic things going on along your borders that have direct impact on you as France, you still managed in the last 20 years to deliver very large GDP growth, overall in excess of 5% per annum, if you look at it. And you have certainly managed to keep the full integrity of the country.
And some countries say, oh, France is run by a dictator. You see the level of hypocrisy. I think this was a good analogy, so you understand Turkey's position.
Let me ask you something. Okay, we know France is not run by a dictator.
Right.
However, the circumstances that Turkey, by being where it is located geographically, has been subject to in the last 20 years, the wars, the separatist movements, war breaking up in Syria, millions of people crossing your borders,
and
all
whatever.
of those. Despite all of those, could Turkey possibly survive unharmed if it wasn't for a very, very strong leader to preside over all of those? A strong leader that, among some circles, is viewed as an authoritarian leader. I leave it up to you to decide.
They had the regimes of 90s and 80s, short-lived coalition governments. Were in power in that period. Turkey would be, its economy would be half of what it is today. Yeah. It would have no control in its maritime borders, wouldn't be able to launch oil and gas exploration campaigns in the Eastern Mediterranean or in Black Sea, wouldn't even be able to cross into Syria to shut down ISIS and the other groups and what have you or whatever. Wouldn't be able to do trade deals with Russia and other countries and everything. And, Turkey would be a puppet country, really. Wouldn't be able to develop the way it developed.
I'd say all of these are the reasons that, despite certain problems Turkey has today, such as inflation, etc.,
of course it does.
Erdogan managed to win his third term. These are the reasons.
Right. So, with this new president of Turkey, brand new president of Turkey, what the next 5 years is going to look like, do you think?
There are a couple of things that Turkey realized in the last several years. I call it the awakening. Turkey realized one thing, that Turkey is not well positioned to be a low-cost manufacturer of the world.
Elaborate.
Whatever products or services you manufacture or you sell, there are two ways of competing. You're either cost competing, which means you're basically saying, hey, I am the lowest cost manufacturer, provider, or you're competing on product differentiation, which you're saying, hey, I'm not the lowest cost, far from it, but I'm going to give you a product that you can't find anywhere else. Mm-hmm. So people will specify your product because it is highly differentiated.
Yeah.
Turkey has to move toward product differentiation. In other words, Turkey can no longer be a low-cost provider. Mm-hmm. So if you're not a cost competitor, then you need to go up the value chain, which means you need to produce higher technologies. You need to provide goods and services that are value added. And technology in today's economy is one of the top drivers of value add. In the last 20 years, from 2002 to 2022, Turkey's R&D expenditure has gone up by 10 times.
Right. It's
I
about
don't have the figures,
$200 billion.
10 times.
And the last $100 billion of it happened in the last 3-4 years.
Now, that's quite significant. That
Right.
means Turkey is now investing in research and development. Turkey has made some significant improvements in technology. There are certain companies in Turkey now that are known as unicorn companies. These are companies that within a time span of 2 to 3 years, they moved from nothing to
200x.
several
Yeah.
billion-dollar market capitalizations. And most of those that show that in the graph, such massive increase, they're in technology sector.
Right.
So Turkey is investing in technology. Turkey is investing in research and development. Turkey is investing in adding value to products and services that it exports. If Turkey continues on this, with our young labor force, with our increasingly educated workforce, within the next 5 to 10 years, in my opinion, Turkey will be a major competitor in the value-add products and services sector in the world. Now, that's where you start creating brands. That's where you start charging premiums. Now, once a country moves to that stage, then you realize that a lot of things that are problematic now, such as the depreciation of Turkish lira against hard currencies, those kinds of things, they tend to sort themselves out.
Inflation was one of the big arguments in the election campaigns, both the opposition and for the ruling party as well. In the next 5 years, what is going to be the policy against inflation or combating inflation?
And this is, again, one of the things that Erdogan was heavily criticized about, his so-called unorthodox interest rates policy.
Right.
Because, there's high inflation. So in order to curb inflation, the orthodox macroeconomic policies is you play with the interest rates. You increase interest rates, so you reduce demand and you curb inflation. Short story.
Right.
Well, Erdogan did just the opposite. As inflation was going up, he was reducing interest rates.
Right.
Now, he was heavily criticized for that.
Right.
My jury is out on this.
Mm-hmm.
I can see the arguments. I mean, I certainly see his argument in terms of no matter what, I will not slow the economy. No matter what, I'm not going to apply the brakes on Turkish manufacturing and Turkish industry. I'm going to stimulate growth, hence lower interest rates.
Right.
I get that.
To their defense, I can tell you that they say we're going to stabilize the inflation about 20%. Which in Turkish lira terms, 20% is not all that bad, by the way. But their aim is to bring it down to 8%.
To single figures.
Right.
Single
So
digits,
their idea is in 2024 and 2025, we'll see inflation coming down. Or after 2025, inflation will go down to single digits. So that is what they said about the
That's
inflation.
their agenda. That's what they intend to do.
Yeah.
Overall, I'd say that Erdogan winning the third term certainly hails continued stability.
Right.
Definitely political stability. And I think for Erdogan also, these elections have been a wake-up call. Although I could see he was all along confident that he would get it. Even the strongest one of us wouldn't fail to realize how close a call it was. Close a call it was. And how the opposition parties, despite the fact that some of them hold very, very different views to one another, despite their differences, they managed to get together just to oust Erdogan.
Right.
That was their mission.
And I think that's a noble thing to do, to be honest with you.
They tried.
Right.
And again, to me, this is democracy.
Of course, I give him big credit, the opposition. Look, we're neither here nor there. We're not any supporters. But when you look at it from the opposition's viewpoint,
they tried.
Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu,
they tried their best.
What he has done was only a few countries in the world have attempted that, to bring out 5, 6, 7 different fronts together.
Exactly.
That they wouldn't be in the same room under normal circumstances.
Exactly. And those fronts, they managed to support Kılıçdaroğlu.
Right.
Kılıçdaroğlu almost won the presidential election.
Opposites, yeah.
Almost won.
He had a great run. And I'll tell you, I have seen some of his interviews, Kılıçdaroğlu's. He makes a lot of sense, and he's really calm. And he represented the side that Erdogan does not represent. And he appealed for the rest of the people, and he was quite successful in getting the almost 49% of the votes. And I take my hat off to that. This is what I mean.
Erdogan, he's got another 5 years.
Yeah.
But knowing Erdogan, he definitely does not intend to walk away after 5 years and say, I've done my part, you guys do whatever. That's not Erdogan. Erdogan wants to leave a legacy.
Right.
So he certainly wants his vision of Turkey to continue. And his vision of Turkey is economic prosperity. Definitely, this is number one agenda, economic prosperity.
Strong country in the region.
And a country that exerts power and influence in the hemisphere it is in, globally. You know, knowing him, he would want to end his next 5 years in such a way that he almost hands over. You see what I mean?
Which he will, by the way. This is his last term.
But hands over not just to any old other party or any old other ideology. He does want to see a continuation of what he started.
Of course.
That's the kind of man he is. Which, to me, means that having observed the opposition almost winning against him, and he wants to leave a legacy, he's going to have to change a few things. And those things that he's going to have to change, in my opinion, do need to be changed. And I'm not going to, again, go into detail. They need to be changed. And in my opinion, again, they are the reasons that he almost lost the election.
Right.
So if he manages to improve those things, then I think that's gonna deliver a much stronger Turkey in the next 5 years, in the next 10 years.
Correct, I agree. Now, let's talk a bit about our industry, how these elections will affect. Well, rather than the elections, how our industry will look like until the next election.
Well, let me give you some very interesting statistic.
Tell me.
Today is the 29th.
Yes.
It's one day after the election.
Correct.
The results barely came out.
Right.
I was talking with Mohammed lunchtime.
Right.
I said to Mohammed, how are the leads? How are the inquiries? What's the traffic like? You know what he said to me?
Tripled,
he goes
quadrupled.
to me, Cameron, traffic today doubled.
Yeah.
It's back to so many months ago.
Right.
Because in our sector, the last 2-3 months in particular, with the turn of this year, we have seen a gradual reduction in the traffic, the visitors, the leads, the demand. Now, immediately, one day after, he goes to me, bang, it's zoomed up again. So that also means, well, it tells me one thing, that the foreign investors out there eyeing up Turkey, as they always do, for potential investments, they certainly want stability.
Right.
And they see Erdogan winning as stability.
Correct.
So I think it's going to facilitate and it's going to speed up investment coming into the country. That's what I think.
To say a few words about our industry, that I would say in the next, I mean, we got the local elections coming in 2024. And I think the biggest challenge in front of Erdogan right now is the rebuilding of the cities that were destroyed. The cost of
urban
which,
regeneration.
the cost of which they say is going to go up to $100 billion.
Yes.
And you have local elections of 2024. Now, Erdogan's lost Istanbul, Ankara, and 11 major cities.
He lost the big cities.
And the big cities desperately need urban regeneration. So to our audience, I'd like to say that urban regeneration now will be at the forefront of the election campaigns of the next election.
Definitely.
Because how do you
Definitely.
win Istanbul back? Because Istanbul is in the opposition now. The Istanbul's
True.
mayor is the opposition. You need to promise people something. You need to give them a vision, show them a red apple.
One of the most important thing for people
is
these
urban
days in
regeneration.
Turkey is the roof over their head.
Right.
After the dramatic earthquake we had.
So
And
would you like to finish this episode with an investment advice? Now all that is said and done.
I say we now have, from now till the end of this year, whereby, yes, the market will come back, but not as fast as we would want it to.
Right.
Which means we now have a window in front of us of 5 to 6 months, whereby, in my opinion, it is time to invest in Turkey.
Right.
It is time to invest, because I expect with 2024 and onwards, Turkish economy should start doing better and better.
Right.
I do think inflation will start coming down.
Well, that's the policy.
Okay,
Yeah.
I do believe
Going
it will start
forward,
coming down. And I do think if we had a time machine and if we could go forward 3 years, I think we're going to be seeing a very active real estate market. And I think we're going to start seeing prices going up again dramatically, which is not something I welcome.
Mm-hmm.
Because the higher the prices go up, the more people will be priced out of the market, more Turkish people. But that is the way it happens in most countries, and unfortunately, I think we will see prices going up here as well.
But there's a way that they will balance it.
Maybe mortgages, making it more accessible, and with a few other instruments.
And Emlak Konut creating a lot of affordable homes for a lot of people that they could purchase with loans, with good paybacks.
Government
what is not going to happen
is
in the city centers, you won't find affordable properties. Those days are gone.
There'll be a change in demographics, I believe.
That's inevitable in any developing country. 100 years ago, the profile who lived in Manhattan is not the same as the profile who's living there. And this goes for London and this goes for everywhere else.
Absolutely.
And Istanbul is not immune to that. And it's even inevitable and will happen.
I agree.
Yet, there's the flip side of the coin as well. So, let's... well, what do? We wish.
Well,
we wish
I
good luck
think
to the brand new president.
Well, I think we should say congratulations.
Yes, congratulations.
He won a hard battle, and he won it.
Right.
And as we always say, we truly wish the best for Turkey.
May it bring peace, stability,
and all that.
And too tired really.
Yes.
Man, for the past 2-3 weeks, 2-3 months, I'm tired of following elections.
So what do you want? And you want to have a holiday?
No, I want elections to be done in the first round. The second round is just
this second round of elections.
I didn't like it, to be honest with you. I didn't like it. In the past,
the past 2 weeks, life came to an almost standstill in Turkey.
Yeah.
You would take away a restaurant, and the guy would say, "Well, I'm waiting for elections to be over."
Right, right.
I'm not kidding.
Right.
So
okay.
Like
Thank you very much for watching, and hopefully see you in the next episode.
Take care.